trading time for money was really not a great business model. Our most valuable asset is time. So simply billing hours to the business wasn't enough. We now were invested, think aligned, to make the business as successful as possible. I'm empowering people to go fulfill their passion to help business owners get as much money as they can for their business so that they can then go do great things. The true wealth is not money. It's principle-based wealth. And how do you preserve legacy inside your family? And I think it's incredibly important.
I have one last question for you. A question I ask everybody I interview, and that is, what's bigger than business for Jim Shields? Today we explore the intersection of law, business, and entrepreneurship. We have the great pleasure of speaking with James D. Jim Shields, a prominent figure in the Dallas legal and business community. Jim Shields is the founder and principal attorney of Shields Legal Group, a law firm that goes beyond traditional legal services. With over 4 decades of experience, Jim is not just a seasoned attorney, but also a serial entrepreneur and a strategic investor. Founded in 1991, Shields Legal Group provides expert strategic legal services to middle market companies, entrepreneurs, and family offices. The firm's mission is to bring strategic business insight, professional judgment, and competence to their clients' business and legal issues. Jim is also the founder and CEO of the Shields Group, which we're going to talk about in a little while, a company that partners with private businesses to facilitate growth and successful sale transactions. This venture combines Jim's legal expertise with business strategy and supports private companies through his trademark growth to exit strategy. Beyond his professional achievements, Jim is deeply committed to giving back to North Texas community. In 2013, he launched Impact 365, a community involvement project that encourages daily, intentional actions to help others. In addition to being a frequent lecturer at local universities, sharing his insights on entrepreneurship and business success, he has also authored the book, Wealth That Lasts, 10 Principles of Legacy Wealth. Today, we'll be diving into Jim's journey, his philosophy on combining legal expertise with business strategy, and his thoughts on the evolving landscape of corporate law and entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Bigger Than Business podcast, Jim.
Jeff, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a great pleasure to have you. A mutual friend introduced us, somebody I think very highly of, Steve Helms, and he said there's somebody you got to meet, Jim Shields, because he knows what we do and he knows what you do, and he thought that we should get to know each other, and I'm so glad he did.
Yeah, Steve's an amazing guy, and we both know him. So yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, thrilled to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna dig right in.
Let's dive in.
So you started as an attorney, and you built a successful law practice. Tell us a little bit about your journey from practicing law to additionally becoming the CEO of the Shields Group, and a serial entrepreneur and a private investor. You got a lot going on. How does all that happen?
There's a lot going on. How much time do we have? So my father was a lawyer. He graduated from University of Texas in law school in 1942.
Wow.
In the smallest graduating class in the history of UT because of Pearl Harbor and World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I admired my dad. He built an amazing practice. So, from high school, I wanted to become a lawyer, right? Just to emulate my dad. Graduated in 1983, and Jeff quickly realized that trading time for money was really not a great business model. Our most valuable asset is time, right? And I was essentially selling time. So I decided to start investing with clients. So if a client bought a business, bought a piece of real estate, did a reinvestment in their company, I would invest.
Yeah.
As a result of that, and by the way, I would never invest unless the law firm was doing the legal work. So we developed a law practice, that by definition had to focus on the business. It wasn't just the law practice, because now that I'm involved, I want to make the business as successful as possible. So simply billing hours to the business wasn't enough. We now were invested, think aligned, to make that
Yes.
business as successful as possible. So I transitioned into a business-focused lawyer. But I also realized, there was a part of my career where I thought, maybe I'll just cancel the law firm. And that would have been a mistake because there's really two fundamental services, accounting and legal. Every business needs some form of accounting help and legal help.
Absolutely.
So I retooled the law firm to support entrepreneurs and do it in a business environment. And it's been an amazing journey.
Where did you get that entrepreneurial spirit and bent? I mean, obviously from the beginning, you were entrepreneurial. Did you see that in your family, your dad?
My dad worked in a law firm all his entire career. He was an entrepreneur, but he just loved practicing law. Absolutely, it was a passion for him. My passion for practicing law is centered on how do we make the business better, not simply how do we solve the legal problem.
Great combination.
Yeah,
great combination.
And when you think about the legal impact to a business, one of my mentors was a man by the name of Vance Miller, the Henry S. Miller family. He was just an amazing guy. Passed away several years ago. Great family. Vance told me that years ago, back in the early 90s, the only time he's ever really gotten hurt in a business context is when he didn't take care of the legal side. And so, that clicked with me, right? How do you marry the legal essentials with the objects of the business so that you can make the business successful? So my view on that was I started investing with my clients so that my interests were aligned with theirs. They never doubted that we were trying to make the business better through our legal engagement.
That's great.
And it's grown since then.
And the term legal essentials makes all the sense in the world. We deal with business owners solely. And a lot of times we see business owners that don't have the legal essentials. And we're pairing them up with the right attorney to help them get the legal essentials. So critical to what they do. It's a common thread through everything we do with our clients. So as a serial entrepreneur and attorney with over 3 decades of experience, what do you consider your biggest achievement so far? You've built this great business. You have a family office. You're co-invested in a lot of ventures. Can you pick a one?
We've had some amazing projects that have been successful financially, but I would say as a kind of my number one is building a reputation in the business community where people want to partner with you so that you can help their business. Because, really, when you hire professional services, and you're in this business as well, Jeff, there's really 2 aspects to it. You have to build trust and you have to demonstrate competence. And there's a lot of people out there that are competent at what they do. Building the trust is it's a challenge sometimes. So what I'm really proud of is, kind of our family's reputation, our law firm's reputation, the family office reputation of competence, but you can trust these guys. Yeah. And I get that constantly, right? So-and-so said, call you. You're really good at what you do, but the biggest compliment I get is they can trust you to protect their interests first.
Yeah,
that's what I'm most proud of.
Goes back to what we were talking about before the camera started rolling, and comes back to our values.
It totally
how
does.
We live them, and that's where trust resonates. So that doesn't surprise me. Getting to know you doesn't surprise me at all. So I think our listeners would be really interested in the work of the Shields Group and your 6-step growth to exit program. How does this help a closely held founder-led business grow and then maximize their value in the sales transaction and the exit?
Yeah, that's been another amazing journey. So we started, Jeff, Growth to Exit in 2015. And I got very interested in founder-led baby boomer transactions because most of the wealth in this country is locked up in private companies. Over 90% of the wealth in this country is locked up in somebody's company. So how do you unlock that wealth? The biggest challenge is that entrepreneurs who have built businesses have built it on what I call a friends and family model. They're the CEO, their kids may be in the business, their nephew, niece, sister, soccer coach, friend, is their CFO, and they built it around what works for their family.
Mm-hmm.
Buyers will not buy companies that are managed around friends and family, institutional, process.
Right.
It's just very difficult to sell that company.
Or they won't pay much for me.
Or they won't, or they'll take advantage of the sellers.
Yeah.
You're like, that's really insightful. You're totally right. They'll say, okay, great, we'll buy your company, but they'll pay way below what it's really worth.
Right.
So I started Growth to Exit in 2015 as a very process-oriented strategy to transition friends and family management strategies to more institutional quality strategies. So we focus on operations, technology, legal, finance, HR. And we try to, move to a more institutional quality process so that it not only unlocks value, Jeff, but it unlocks the number of buyers. So you create a competitive process, which also drives value up.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes all the sense in the world. And that's something I share in common. Is I'm kind of a process junkie as well.
Yep.
So I get it totally. Well, you've got won't surprise our listeners, you've got a sister company, Lighthouse Value Partners, LLC, that plays a really important role in that Growth to Exit program. Can you share a little bit about what Lighthouse Value Partners, LLC brings to the table?
Absolutely. And we're really proud of what we're doing. So we started Growth to Exit in 2015, and it was the law firm that executed against that. So somebody would hire the law firm, we'd do an exit transaction, and then we would start walking through in a partnership with the owner. Look, you need to upgrade your HR.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have your nephew as a CFO. We need to go replace them. Hard conversations sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Your accounting system doesn't work, or your sales strategy, you need a new CRM, whatever. But we would always do that, Jeff, on a consulting basis. So we'd provide advice. Here's what you need to go do. Maybe give them some resources and vendors to go hire, but we stayed focused on the legal. So I stood Lighthouse up last year in March, April timeframe of last year. So it's about a year old. Lighthouse has resources where we actually engage. So it's not a consultant. We're not consultants. We have a bench of really talented people that work for the family office, and they will actually sit down and go spend a week, 2 weeks, a month inside the business and do the work. Because what we were finding is the business operational habits
Mm-hmm.
of the founder, they have to go run the business. They're day to day, like they're in the trenches. They're providing services or building products or whatever it is they do. And they just didn't have time in many cases to go do the work that needed to be done. So I stood up Lighthouse. We provide bench talent that actually goes into the companies. So the founder runs the business.
So is it CEO level?
We have
talent?
CEOs.
HR,
We have the full suite of talent. We have CEOs, CFOs, chief marketing officers, chief revenue officers. I have CFAs on staff.
That's great.
Financial analysts, so that if they need FP&A or different financial reporting. We have an implementation team for ERPs.
Yeah.
We've implemented Sage as ERPs.
Well, that's got to help you immensely that you know these folks, you know how qualified they are, and being the strategic thinker and the process person you are, they can come back to you directly and say, hey, here's what we need to do to increase value. And you can help them do that. Am I getting that
journey.
right?
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
It's been an
that
amazing
makes
journey.
Great sense. Yeah.
The most difficult challenge and really opportunity, I talk about it in the book, but opportunities and challenges are two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
You know that, the listeners know that. The biggest challenge and opportunity is for the owner to just let go a little bit.
Yeah.
And for an owner to say, look, I got here through hard work, sleepless nights, 10, 20, 30 years of work, but telling them you have to let go and let some people who are going to help you unlock value help you transition to an institutional ownership strategy that then a buyer will pay you a bunch of money for.
And that's a hard thing to do.
Very hard.
And you're obviously good at getting them to do that because you've got a great success rate.
We do.
From everything I understand. How long does it take what caused the owner to have the revelation that, hey, this is working, I can let go more? Does it come back to the trust? They see what you're doing, what you're accomplishing, and they trust you and they say, I'm going to run with it? Is that?
It does. We've had some of our engagements, Jeff, have been through failed transactions where an owner goes to market and they just haven't been successful selling. And mostly that's because their business wasn't ready and the the buyers were trying to take advantage of the seller because they weren't ready. So valuations were depressed and they didn't get what they wanted. I mean, you know this, right? They have to trust the process. We have a couple of engagements now where, I talk about it. You just have to trust the process. But the level of talent that we have is really, I'm humbled that they want to come work with Lighthouse. And so the owners, sellers, the founders say, wow, you have some really talented people on your team. We're going to trust them to go do the right thing.
Well, I've learned, Jim, that the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. People with good values that are intelligent and capable like hanging out with people that have good values or intelligent and capable as well. So
you're right.
I can see why they'd like to hang out with you.
You're right. So thank you for that.
In your experience in working with these closely held founder-run businesses, what are some of the common challenges that you see commonly? Is the big one not willing to let go? Is that really the biggest?
That is so huge. So the first two questions we always get is, the first question is, what's my company worth? And I always answer it, well, today it's worth whatever somebody will pay for it. They always ask me, what's it worth? And we have a lot of experience, so I can give them a range. The second question is, well, what do I do after I sell? The post-closing, I've spent so much time and energy and sleepless nights, and this business has put my kids through college and all of that. What do I do after life after closing? The two most common questions we get. So those challenges, and we have owners, Jeff, that are in their 80s, and they haven't let go.
No.
They won't let go.
We see that as well.
Yeah, they won't let go. And I tell people, there's an amazing world out there. Let go.
So how do you prepare them for life after the sale? That is a big fear for a lot of business owners, that they've been deeply entrenched in it. Some of them haven't formed other things outside the business that they can turn to. How do you help them with that, or can you?
Well, there's a high EQ. We are, again, not just lawyers, we're counselors and we're advisors, and Lighthouse brings, really good people with high, emotional intelligence. But practically, a lot of the transactions that we do, we build in their estate plan at the same time. And we encourage people to set up charitable trusts and start thinking early about what they're going to do with their money, what they're going to do with their life. And I'm a big, I believe we tithe. I believe in charitable giving because it's just so fulfilling. So that's one way. Another way is we encourage buyers, Jeff, to set aside a portion of their sale proceeds, not just for equity, but to roll it over in a transaction. And then try to negotiate for that founder a limited role post-closing with the buyer so they can stay involved.
Yeah, that's great.
We have a lot of sellers who, they don't want to run ops or finance, but they'll stay involved from a sales perspective. And so they may become chief sales officer and work with the buyer to continue to grow the business so that their 10, 20, 30% rollover.
Yep, they've got a vested interest. Yep.
They're still involved. They're not working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They're working 10 or 20, but that's been very successful. Yeah. And then we also put a lot of selling entrepreneurs on boards of companies that we're either invested in or we're working with so they can give back.
I was going to say, you've got the classic process and system to bring them in and have them help another company.
Yeah, and we kind of recycle that talent.
Yeah.
in a way that's
great.
mentoring. It's fulfilling for them. And they, these sellers, they don't want to quit.
Yeah.
They don't want to quit. So it's been great. It's been a great experience.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but before I do, if somebody that's watching or listening is contemplating selling their business, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to contact you?
We're super visible in the North Texas community. Reach out through the website shieldsgrouptx.com.
Okay.
They can call the law firm. They can reach out to me directly. I give my cell phone out to lots and lots of people, and they just reach out. We have an amazing team. I would say reach out, either call the office or reach out through the website.
Okay.
Either one. But we're
Great.
super open, and our job is just to help people get better.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
So much of what you do is focused on families preserve their legacy, because a lot of you've talked about the business owners, that's their legacy, and that's one reason they have a hard time giving up on it. But you believe that so much, you've written a book on the subject, Wealth That Lasts, 10 Principles of Legacy Wealth. And I was surprised when I first went through the book because I expected planning advice. But what I found were topics I think are much more valuable that focus on values, which is what led to our conversation earlier. Why was it important for you to address the topics you addressed? You might want to talk about a few of them in the book. And is there a common thread in the 10 principles?
So the journey of writing this book started with a belief that, and this is going to may sound funny to you or to listeners, money, when you create wealth. So we've had clients that, will sell their business and they've worked their whole lives, and now they get anywhere from a 20 to a 50 to a $250 million check.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's real money.
Yeah.
And they think that their life is now just amazingly good, and a lot of people are, but money takes care and feeding and watering. It's a responsibility. And I've seen a lot of families, one of the most just touched my heart in a troubling way, Jeff, conversations I had was with a lady that they had a family wealth of 500 million, and the kids were fighting. And we were in a meeting, and she said, I want to excuse you and I want to talk to Jim directly. She started tearing up and saying, I wish I didn't have the money because it's ripping my family apart. Mm-hmm. Money can create amazing opportunities. It also can create incredible tension, toxicity. Yeah. So what I realized was, in order to manage that wealth and do it in a manner that's succession driven, mm-hmm. there are strategies that founders can use to teach their kids to not fight, to be principled, to be, to give back. There's a chapter on servant leadership. Mm-hmm. The statistics, which founders make the money. Over 80% of second generation, 80% lose their parents' wealth. Third generation's even more. It's 95% lose their parents' money. That's an amazing tragedy.
Yeah, it is a tragedy.
It's a travesty.
It is.
It's a tragedy. So I wrote this with the idea the true wealth is not money.
Yeah.
It's principle-based wealth. And how do you preserve legacy inside your family? And I think it's just, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, it's excellent. And I can highly recommend it. It's one thing we work with the families that we're blessed to be able to help and is continuing what the values of the family and what the family cares about. But you did a really good job in the book. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're balancing a lot of plates, spinning a lot of plates in the air. We've got a lot of our listeners, they're business owners, entrepreneurs, often do that. How do you run so many businesses simultaneously as successfully as you do? What are some of the keys to you being able to do that?
So I talk about this in the book, right? The first three principles, and I'll focus on that, Jeff, and then come back to your question. First three principles are attitude, gratitude, passion, and commitment. Those three.
Mm-hmm.
So direct answer to your question is, it's not about me. We have some talent inside the organization they believe in the mission. They believe in the help that we're providing these families. They have high EQ. They've been through exits themselves. They know what it's like to get a pot of money, and then how do you manage your kids? How do you manage your family members?
Yeah.
What are your goals? And so we just, the first principle is we just have some amazing people. And then the second is we're very goal-oriented, very goal-oriented. I believe creating an alignment of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding the highest talented people you can find, setting a clear mission, goal, and objectives, and then having a passion, number three, so that their passion is aligned with the mission, goals, and objectives, is how you build great businesses. So I have a lot of projects in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, none of them are in the air. They're all on track, on task.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't call them in the air because that implies no focus.
Yeah.
They're all on track, but we just I'm empowering people to go fulfill their passion, to help business owners get as much money as they can for their business, so that they can then go do great things with their wealth.
I think that's ultimately the key. Once you get that alignment of goals and culture and values, to empower them to take it and run with it is what a lot of people have a hard time doing.
They do. And they want, Jeff, people want to be empowered around their passion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's in our DNA.
Yeah, it is.
And so we have people on our team right now, they were stuck. And I had the privilege of working with them, and I would talk to them and say, "You're in the wrong spot." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're not in a position where you can go fulfill your passion. Let me empower you."
Yeah.
And when you unlock commitment and passion, and then create a structure where they can be successful,
Mm-hmm.
the results are stunning.
They are, and they're also very rewarding. And you're obviously really, really good at that. That's a really great gift. It's a gift that not that many people have. So you're very blessed to have that.
I appreciate that. I think that it just requires intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires a commitment to empower people. Yeah. Something that just touches my heart. And so can I tell you like a 30-second story?
Sure.
I was on an elevator, and I frustrate my wife in a joking way sometimes, because I'll be on an elevator with somebody and I'll look at them and say, "What's your story?" And they're kind of like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Tell me your story. We have 5 floors. Tell me your story." So I was on an elevator in a building, and it was just me and a FedEx delivery man. He was wearing shorts, and I looked down, and he had 2 artificial legs. So I said, "What's your story?" First I said, "Man, I'm really sorry that happened. Was it in Afghanistan or overseas?" And he said it was. He said, "Don't ever apologize." He said, "I have the greatest life ever." And I said, "Really? Tell me about that." He lost both his legs in an IED explosion.
Mm-hmm.
He was a Marine. He said, "I have an amazing wife. I have 2 daughters." And he said, "I have the best life ever, because I get up every day. I drive for FedEx. That's not my end goal. I'm going back to school, and I'm learning, and I'm this and I'm that." And he said, "Please don't ever feel sorry for me, because I have the greatest life ever."
That's awesome.
Jeff,
Yeah.
it's an amazing, like, he could have sat in a corner or in his house or laid on the couch and watched TV. But, and so it really touched my heart. I put it in the book.
Yeah.
A FedEx delivery man was a massive inspiration for me.
That's cool.
You give people the opportunity to succeed, and they will take it.
And they will appreciate it that you did that.
They will appreciate it. The gratitude is immense, but we have to unlock that potential in people.
We do. And again, I really admire how well you do that. And clearly you're successful at, because you can see it in the success of your businesses. You can't do all that yourself. You just can't. You have to have good people. You have to have good process. You have to have good values, culture, all the things. And you're right. It takes a lot of intentionality to be able to do that. So kudos to you, because
Yeah, thank you.
I know a number of entrepreneurs that don't have those gifts, and they're often running around like their hair's on fire. So
Well, you've enjoyed an amazing success as well, right? Because you have the same kind of faith-based, principle-based, action-driven. We have to get results. We have to demonstrate value. We have to intentionally make the world a better place.
And it's purposeful, and it's intentional. Absolutely. But this isn't about me, Jim.
Well, I know, but I mean,
that.
look, you're a great example of entrepreneurship in the market.
Yeah.
So
And I was going to ask you what advice you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs, but you've already given it. Everything you shared is just tremendously valuable to anybody at any level of their journey in entrepreneurship, whether just starting or whether they're 70 years old and saying what's next. The insights you shared are just fantastic. But if there's anything else that comes to mind, I'd love to hear it.
There's a lot of things we can talk about. The number one thing that I see with entrepreneurs that are holding back their unlocking not only their professional potential, but their companies, which then rolls down through their family, is a reluctance to trust people who have been there, done that. And oftentimes, the challenge with the exit journey, the company exit journey, is the strategies that got somebody from, I opened a company in my garage and now it's worth $100 million, to how do I unlock that value? The strategies that got them to where they are today are not the strategies that are going to get them to unlock that value. And an entrepreneur's willingness to accept subject matter experts who can help them transition into that exit is the biggest impediment that I see of people. I had a situation last year that still touches my heart in a negative way. I was approached. I said, we can help. There was a level of distrust, not just of me, but of the process. They were scared of investment bankers and what happens with their commercial bankers, and I don't understand the process. They had a business that was probably worth between 30 and 40 million, after we ran a process. Instead, they literally said, well, I have plenty of money. They took their equipment to auction and shut it down. And because they were so distrustful of the process.
Wow.
And I talked to him afterwards and I said, you should have just even let us help you sell it and given the money to charity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I see so many founders who are unwilling or distrustful of the process. And it's a scary process. Yeah. Getting in bed with investment bankers and private equity, it's a deep end of a shark-infested pool.
It is, but if you have somebody you trust leading the charge, they can help you navigate all that.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, is the key. And as you and I both know, the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that surround themselves with great people.
Exactly right.
And people that are trustworthy and people of integrity. And those are the people that are going to help you get across the goal line, right?
Yeah, exactly. I tell people, Jeff, when I have an entrepreneur that comes in and we meet with them and they say, well, because I prep them for change. Mm-hmm. This is a change management exercise. When they say, but I've done it this way for the last 20 years, my response always is, then you're doing it wrong for an exit. Because what's got you here for the last 20 years is some of those strategies are going to work, but a lot of them aren't as you prepare for an exit. And you have to be open to learning and trusting subject matter experts. So that's my biggest, I see so many entrepreneurs who don't unlock value because they won't trust.
Well, and you and I both also know part of that is because it's hard to find sometimes people that are the subject matter experts that you can trust.
That's true.
And I think that's one reason why you've been so successful, honestly. I think it comes right back down to those core values and the fact you live them and the fact that you're trustworthy and people want you helping them.
we do have people who will say the highest compliment I've ever received, I think, and it's happened multiple times, is somebody saying, "I watch how your personal life. You know, we have a long marriage and amazing wife and great kids, and kids are in a couple of the businesses, and they say, will you please bring the principles and the values and the work ethic that you've done with your own personal and professional career to my family?" I mean, that
No better compliment than that. I can't think of one.
yeah, it's a high compliment,
It is a
and
high
it's an immense responsibility
It is. It is.
as well, because they're trusting us with 30 years of their life and their family's future, and I take that seriously.
Yeah, and for me, it all comes back to who I'm doing it for, and the fact I'm trying to glorify the good Lord in everything I do. So that's
Totally right.
helps the focus. Well, I have one last question for you. It's a question I ask everybody I interview, and that is, what's bigger than business for Jim Shields?
That's a great question, and it's evolved over time. Today, I believe that business, entrepreneurship, and creating, following somebody's passion to create a business that makes the world a better place is the number one thing we can do. I think that, we're not going to get into politics. We're not going to get into social, challenges or any of the economic issues. But business can solve an amazing number of problems, and it can enrich and empower people's lives. So what's bigger than business is the creation of a company that will allow fulfillment of passion and commitment to make the world a better place.
We could do a whole nother podcast on that subject.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of experience
I would
with
welcome
that, and a lot of insight working with people who believe the same thing, and there actually do see the business owners around the world as people that can bring the global change and solve the greatest problems in the world, not the World Economic Forum.
Now, business is the only true outcome to solve major problems, big problems. So
I appreciate you sharing that, and we will regroup on that subject. Well, Jim, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time, and your insights are just incredible. Your depth of experience and depth of success, and how you do it, and why you do it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Makes a big difference.
I'm
Appreciate you.
so happy to be here.
Thank you.
Spread the word. Thank you.